Someone at Google put me on the list to be able to try out Hangouts on there early on. And I remember I was on holiday break from teaching when that happened, and I sat at home that day and I thought, boy, what do you do with that? So what if we used it just to help people learn how fun and simple drawing can be? So I thought that if I did have a big following, if I did have an opportunity to do something relevant, it needed to be service-oriented. So just trying to keep that the focus. Before I was a licensed teacher, I was just doing gallery paintings, and what was strange about that, being a fine artist was awesome, but I was just going out and painting landscape or still life or figured work, but I didn't really, it sounds strange, but I wasn't really passionate about my subject matter. I was a young man. I was 18 years old, and I just wanted to learn the craft. There were two parts about it that I didn't like. I didn't like the isolation of it, and then I also didn't like that there were a lot of gallery owners that wanted to dictate a little bit of what you were creating and what kind of things they would show and how that was going to work, and I just didn't want to be 100% plugged into that.
So I wonder when you kind of realized that teaching was something you could do and wanted to do and would be good at.
Well, I think it was a great matter of timing. I was kind of in the midst of a deep personal drama, it's a bit of a struggle, and at that very moment I stepped into the classroom to do my practicum with a high school group, and it fulfilled something inside of me that needed to be fulfilled. And by that first week, I was having more fun than I'd had in a long time. And so I think there's some part of me that just comes alive in front of students, whether they're young, old, or whatever. I love it. So that sharing of knowledge is really, really fulfilling. And I think it was almost immediate. As far as my curriculum planning for this, it's pretty rough. I'll just sit there maybe an hour before and decide what we're going to do, and then it always changes depending on who shows up. And it's a lot more challenging to teach via a Hangout than it is in real life, because just like any of us will walk into a room and we can kind of get a feel for our audience, so to speak, their education level, their background, even their temperament, even just at a glance. And I think that it's a lot harder to get a hold on over a webcam. But now that Google Plus is becoming more established, I still think it holds a lot of those early days ideas about itself, of being a little bit more personal, a little bit more mature, a little bit more professional. I'm sympathetic to at least what I understand is the big picture that Google is painting. I like kind of maybe their vision for the future of the internet a little better than some others. A lot of people will ask me, they say, well, you have over 1.5 million followers. Are you making a lot of money? They ask me that. That's always what they ask. And I say, well, maybe I could, but I haven't put a single link to any purchasable art on anything that you can find from my Google Plus account. And that's intentional, because this for me is what life is really about. I want, there's enough of our lives that are saturated with advertising and turning our activity into a commodity, and I just want to connect with people here. And I think that's a reason enough. And it all starts back with my mentor. I had a mentor who was an old Disney artist. He taught us every secret and every trick that he knew. And his friends thought he was crazy for doing it. But he really felt like it was his obligation, And he is now, 75, 76 years old. And that generation of artists and all that knowledge and the world wars and all the things that he's witnessed in that golden age of illustration and the type of training that they got back then, all that stuff isn't going to happen again. I'm painting digitally as well as traditionally, and that would be using a digitizing surface with a stylus, and it's really, really fun. Well, the day that I told him I was painting that way, I was bracing myself, because he's sort of like talking to the Godfather, I learned the craft from this old Italian guy, and I was like going to Dad. I'm like, Dad, I'm not going to do the family business anymore, And He says, I tell him what I'm doing, and I brace for it, and then he just explodes. He says, "That's great! At your age, that's what I'd be doing." You know, a lot of times the traditional artists have a stigma about using new media, but I don't think the real artists have any stigma about it.